Well, good evening. Don't think I'm that well prepared tonight, but we're just pretty much going over the same passage as we did with the prime time on Friday night. So if you can turn to 1Kings chapter 21. First Kings chapter 21. Joe, are you able to turn me down a bit? Because I can hear myself echoing. Okay, let's just pray. Dear Lord, thank you that we can come tonight to church to worship you. Please help us as we look at this passage, that we can learn from the wrong example of Ahab here and his covetousness and where that led him, but then also that you are merciful even to a person like Ahab that's gone so wickedly against you. In Jesus' name, amen. So this passage, chapter 21, is quite some time after Elijah had built the altar on the top of Mount Carmel, and also the prophets of Baal, and they'd proved there who was the true God by the one who sent fire down on the altar. So this is quite some time after that, I do believe. And since then, Elijah has run away from Jezebel, and God has showed him that he's not the only one left, that there were 7,000 left in Israel, and now Elijah is evidently back in Israel. And so we'll read verse 21. It says, and it came to pass, chapter 21, verse 1. And it came to pass after these things that Naboth the Jezreelite had a vineyard, which was in Jezreel, hard by the palace of Ahab king of Samaria. And Ahab spake unto Naboth, saying, Give me thy vineyard, that I may have it for a garden of herbs, because it is near unto my house, and I will give thee for it a better vineyard than it. Or, if it seem good to thee, I will give thee the worth of it in money. So here, Naboth had this vineyard next to Ahab the king, next to his palace. And he wanted it for a garden of herbs, which in itself was not anything wrong with it. He was going to pay a fair price for it, or give him a better vineyard for it. So that in itself, there was nothing wrong with it. But the problem is that we need to beware of covetousness. Jesus warned against it in Luke chapter 12, verse 15. He says, And he said unto them, Take heed and beware of covetousness. For a man's life consisteth not in the abundance of the things which he possesseth. And that's where the problem was. In verse 3 it says, And Naboth said to Ahab, The Lord forbid it me that I should give the inheritance of my fathers unto thee. So here this vineyard is the inheritance of his fathers. And generally in that time people didn't sell their inheritance unless they were very poor and they needed to in order to survive. But other than that, they didn't really sell it a lot, as far as I can tell. If they did sell their property because they were too poor, then it could be redeemed by a wealthier family member, or by the same person if they happen to make enough money to redeem it back. Otherwise, it would remain with the person who bought it until the year of Jubilee, and then it would go back to the original owner. But here, in this passage, Naboth obviously wasn't hard up and he didn't want to sell it, which was fair enough. And actually, these rules about the inheritance, they're given in Leviticus 25, 23 to 28. It says, The land shall not be sold forever, for the land is mine, for ye are strangers and sojourners with me. And in all the land of your possession ye shall grant a redemption for the land. If thy brother be waxen poor, and hath sold away some of his possession, and if any of his kin come to redeem it, then shall he redeem that which his brother sold. And if the man have none to redeem it, and himself be able to redeem it, then let him count the years of the sale thereof, and restore the overplus unto the man to whom he sold it, that he may return unto his possession. But if he be not able to restore it to him, then that which is sold shall remain in the hand of him that bought it until the year of Jubilee. And in the Jubilee it shall go out, and he shall return unto his possession. So now that Naboth doesn't want to sell this vineyard, Ahab, instead of being content with that and finding another one, basically threw a tantrum. So in verse 4 it says, And Ahab came into his house heavy and displeased because of the word which Naboth the Jezreelite had spoken to him. for he had said, I will not give thee the inheritance of my fathers. And he laid him down upon his bed, and turned away his face, and would eat no bread. But Jezebel his wife came to him, and said unto him, Why is thy spirit so sad, that thou eatest no bread? And he said unto her, Because I spake unto Naboth the Jezreelite, and said unto him, Give me thy vineyard for money, or else, if it please thee, I will give thee another vineyard for it. And he answered, I will not give thee my vineyard. So here we can see that Ahab was not following God's law. God's law, that is the law of Moses, told about inheritance and the rights of redemption and so on, as we just read. But rather than going with that and realizing that this is Naboth's possession, he just wanted to please himself and fulfill his own desires. And actually, it's very similar to the verse in Micah chapter 2, verse 1 to 3. It says, Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand. And they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. Therefore thus saith the Lord, Behold, against this family do I devise an evil, from which ye shall not remove your necks, neither shall ye go haughtily, for this time is evil. This is very similar to what Ahab's doing right here. On the contrary, in 1 Timothy 6:6, it says, But godliness with contentment is great gain. And that's what Ahab ought to have been doing. He ought to have been following the Lord in the first place, and then being content with what the Lord had given him. So after this we see Ahab doesn't really do much else about it other than sulk. Jezebel takes over from here. In verse 7, it says, And Jezebel his wife said unto him, Dost thou now govern the kingdom of Israel? Arise and eat bread, and let thine heart be merry. I will give thee the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite. So she wrote letters in Ahab's name, and sealed them with his seal, and sent the letters unto the elders and to the nobles that were in his city dwelling with Naboth. And she wrote in the letters, saying, Proclaim a fast, and set Naboth on high among the people, and set 2 men, sons of Belial, before him, to bear witness against him, saying, Thou didst blaspheme God and the king, and then carry him out and stone him that he may die. So here Jezebel is giving these wicked orders in Ahab's name, using his seal, and she commanded them to proclaim a fast. So it's like they're acting like they're trying to do the right thing, and maybe mourning for some sin or seeking God. That's what a fast is usually for. But then they were to set Naboth before the people and say that he's the guilty one. It's almost like a false repeat of what happened with Achan, where everyone fasted because God was going to judge them, and then they brought out Achan before them and he was killed. It's like a false repeat of that. They were to set Naboth up as the one who's doing the wrong thing, blaspheming God and the king. Also, they needed false witnesses, which shows us that Naboth was an upright man. They couldn't find anything genuine to fault with him. Likely he was one of the 7,000 people who God had said had not bowed the knee to Baal, because they couldn't find anything wrong with him. In verse 11 it says, And the men of his city, even the elders and the nobles who were the inhabitants in his city, did as Jezebel had sent unto them, and as it was written in the letters which she had sent unto them. They proclaimed a fast, and set Naboth on high among the people. And there came in 2 men, children of Belial, and sat before him. And the men of Belial witnessed against him, even against Naboth, in the presence of the people, saying, Naboth did blaspheme God and the king. Then they carried him forth out of the city, and stoned him with stones, that he died. So here the elders of the city, they did exactly as Jezebel had commanded them. They didn't try to oppose Jezebel even in the slightest way, because they weren't willing to make a stand. They were probably scared that they'd be the ones that were killed instead. They were not deceived by this either, because they were the ones that were ordered to get the false witnesses. So Jezebel didn't just trick them into thinking that Naboth had done something wrong, but they knew he hadn't. Naboth, he hadn't blasphemed God or the king. And in in Leviticus, the penalty for blasphemy is stoning. So here they were using the Levitical law to judge Naboth based on this false accusation, but Jezebel didn't even follow the Lord in the first place. And they weren't using the law of Baal, they were using God's law to judge him. If we turn over to Leviticus chapter 24, we'll see that. Leviticus chapter 24, verse 10. And it says, and the son of an Israelitish woman, whose father was an Egyptian, went out among the children of Israel. And this son of the Israelitish woman and a man of Israel strove together in the camp. And the Israelitish woman's son blasphemed the name of the Lord and cursed. And they brought him unto Moses. And his mother's name was Shelomith, the daughter of Dibri of the tribe of Dan. And they put him in ward, that the mind of the Lord might be showed them. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Bring forth him that had cursed without the camp, and let all that heard him lay their hands upon his head, and let all the congregation stone him. And thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel, saying, Whosoever curseth his God shall bear his sin. And he that blasphemeth the name of the Lord, he shall surely be put to death. And all the congregation shall certainly stone him, as well the stranger as he that is born in the land. When he blasphemeth the name of the Lord, shall be put to death. So here, I find it very strange that Jezebel was using God's law in order to falsely judge Naboth, but that's what she did. Then after that, in verse 14, it says, Then they sent to Jezebel, that is, the elders of the city sent to Jezebel, saying, Naboth is stoned and is dead. And it came to pass, when Jezebel heard that Naboth was stoned and was dead, that Jezebel said to Ahab, Arise, take possession of the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite, which he refused to give thee for money. For Naboth is not alive, but dead. So here, Naboth had died. The land should have passed on to his family or else his relatives. It definitely wasn't up for the king to take. But Jezebel tells Ahab, go get it. First in, best dressed. So both murder and stealing at the same time. And in verse 16, and it came to pass when Ahab heard that Naboth was dead, that Ahab rose up to go down to the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite to take possession of it. So he also was not opposed to Jezebel's actions here. He was actually in on it because he was the one that went and claimed the vineyard himself. And then in the next part we see God's judgment on Ahab and Jezebel and their family. It says, And the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Arise, go down to meet Ahab king of Israel, which is in Samaria. Behold, he is in the vineyard of Naboth, whither he is gone down to possess it. And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord, Hast thou killed and also taken possession? And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord, In the place where the dogs licked the blood of Naboth, shall dogs lick thy blood, even thine. So here, this is judgment on Ahab because of it, that dogs would lick his blood in the same place as Naboth. And then Ahab said to Elijah, Hast thou found me, O mine enemy? And he answered, I have found thee, because thou hast sold thyself to work evil in the sight of the Lord. It's almost like Ahab still didn't get it. It's like in a couple of chapters ago, in chapter 18, when the drought was over the land. Actually, turn over to chapter 18. At the end of the drought, Elijah went to see King Ahab. And in verse 17, it says, And it came to pass, when Ahab saw Elijah, that Ahab said unto him, Art thou he that troubleth Israel? Same sort of thing. And he answered, I have not troubled Israel, but thou and thy father's house, in that ye have forsaken the commandments of the Lord, and hast followed Balaam. So this is much the same. It says that Ahab has sold himself to do evil in the sight of the Lord. But even still, he's trying to blame Elijah for it. In verse 21, back in chapter 21, Behold, I will bring evil upon thee, and will take away thy posterity, and will cut off from Ahab him that pisseth against the wall, and him that is shut up and left in Israel. And will make thine house like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha the son of Ahijah, for the provocation wherewith thou hast provoked me to anger, and made Israel to sin. And of Jezebel also spake the Lord, saying, The dogs shall eat Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel. Him that dieth of Ahab in the city, the dogs shall eat, and him that dieth in the field shall the fowls of the air eat. So here, that's the rest of the judgment on Ahab and his family. All of Ahab's descendants would be cut off, and Jezebel would die a horrible death, almost like the guy that she murdered, Naboth. Then after this, we see something that's quite interesting, and that is, we'll read verse 25, But there was none like unto Ahab, which did sell himself to work wickedness in the sight of the Lord, whom Jezebel his wife stirred up. And he did very abominably in following idols, according to all things as did the Amorites, whom the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. And it came to pass, when Ahab heard those words, that he rent his clothes and put sackcloth upon his flesh, and fasted, and lay in sackcloth, and went softly. That's what I find very interesting, because Ahab was more wicked than all the kings around him, yet when God proclaimed that there was going to be judgment on him and his household, he humbled himself. He didn't turn from Baal or turn to God, but he humbled himself at least. And because of that, God postponed the judgment. It says in verse 28, And the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Seest thou how Ahab humbleth himself before me? Because he humbleth himself before me, I will not bring the evil in his days, but in his son's days will I bring the evil upon his house. So it just shows us that God is still willing to have mercy even on such a wicked king as Ahab, even though he didn't turn to the Lord. Just because he'd humbled himself, God postponed the judgment. So even through that, God still got mercy. So we'll probably leave it there.